coming up. Let's do it. I want you to get excited about your life.
Here we go, in 10.
Stand by, camera 6.
If it's happening now, we're going to deal with it now.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
This is going to be a changing day in your life. I'm taking people with real problems and moving them into the Dr. Phil house.
Now, many of us have watched movies on wrongful conviction. We've watched with bated breath as innocent people have been locked up whilst the culprits walk free. This is the reality for hundreds of Americans every year. Studies have shown that in the year of 2000 alone, 7,500 innocent Americans were jailed for crimes they did not commit. My guest today claims to be one such case and is in the midst of a legal battle to appeal their alleged wrongful conviction and clear their name. Let's take a look. In early April of 2015, I was at my job when my supervisor came over and said there were 2 police officers who wanted to talk to me. I had no idea what they wanted to talk to me about, and I was shocked when they told me that a woman had been murdered. They said they had a few questions to ask me, and wanted to know where I was on the day that she'd been killed, and if anyone could confirm my whereabouts. Of course I was nervous, not because I was guilty. I was nervous because they seemed to have already made up their minds. The questions weren't those of general curiosity, more like mind games, trying to trip me up. But whatever, I went about my life as usual, you know, having faith in the justice system. But that all changed on Friday the 26th of April. I was at home with my kids when there was a knock at the door. When I answered, police officers informed me that I was under arrest for the murder of Teresa Bentley and took me away. No warning, no evidence, nothing. I was taken to trial where I was convicted of murder in the 1st degree and... I'm sorry, just... and I was given the death sentence. I've been on death row for 2.5 years now. I just want people to know that I'm innocent and that I didn't do what they say I did. Like, I just want to go home to my family and my kids. Please help me, Dr. Phil. So, Albert, how are you feeling after this whole situation? How are you coping with life in prison?
It's been tough, Dr. Phil. I'm not cut out for life behind bars. I've got PTSD, depression, and anxiety, all clinically diagnosed, and all arising from this situation. I'm really struggling and I just want my life to go back to normal.
I mean, no one is going to deny that prison ain't easy. In fact, the very circumstances surrounding your case, it's a textbook example of psychological poverty. So Albert, do you mind telling us exactly what happened after your arrest by the police on the 26th of April?
Once I was arrested, they put me in jail until the legal proceedings could continue. When the case was taken to court, they immediately ruled that there was apparently enough evidence to go to trial. At trial, they went through the evidence against me. The proof they supposedly had was that an eyewitness had identified me in a lineup, saying she saw me at the scene of the crime the night of the murder. I don't know or care what they think they found. I wasn't there. I didn't do it. They ruled that I was guilty for Teresa's murder and sentenced me to death. It's been the worst experience of my life. I'm from a very small town, you see. Everyone knows everyone. My case was all over the news.
So you're saying that your case was highly publicised in the news around town? So everyone already knew what you had been accused of before you even went to trial? Did you know any of the jurors?
Of course. All the jurors knew me before all of this. I went to school with most of them or knew them from around town. They all knew what the police were accusing me of. I hated seeing my reputation tarnished by something like this. To lose friends and the respect of those around me.
Well, now that we know the details surrounding your wrongful conviction, why don't we speak with the prosecutor in Albert's case, Emily, to hear her side of the story, because no matter how flat you make the pancake, it still has 2 sides.
The first time I was introduced to Albert's case was just prior to his original hearing before the trial. The police informed me on how Teresa's body had been found in the middle of the park that was located right next to Albert's house, with her throat slit. Albert's case was all over the news in my town, in the surrounding towns, I vividly remember hearing about it for weeks in coffee houses, the newspaper, hell, even the carpool parents at my kids' school were aware. When I realised the extent of this case, I had to get involved. There was one witness present around the time of this crime who saw Teresa in the park with a man, and when shown a lineup of suspects, the witness she identified was Albert. No questions asked, no hesitation. With such concrete witness testimony, I saw this as an open and shut case. A clearly guilty man would be put behind bars so that justice could be served for Teresa's grieving family.
Would you all give a warm welcome to Emily as she joins us on stage? Emily, how are you? You've been watching the show from backstage, and I guess where I want to start with you is Albert guilty?
Oh, absolutely he is. I mean, I honestly believe so. There's too much evidence to doubt it.
See now, you say that, but I want to take it back a little, because I have a nagging suspicion that the evidence that you do have is a little tainted.
Okay.
Firstly, you say that you heard about Albert's case before it even went to trial. You heard it, and I quote, in the news, in the papers, even within your community. Do you think that's fair? He was basically being demonized before he even had a chance to defend himself.
Well, no. I mean, isn't it the media's duty to report on daily events?
Oh, it is. However, one of our major influences on misinformation and false accusations arises from pre-trial publicity, and more specifically, the harmful effects that this can have on the outcome for people such as Albert. Another thing I want to bring up is this evidence. So you say that there was concrete DNA evidence.
Yes, there was. I personally thought that one eyewitness was enough, but decided to back it up with something more concrete. I am a legal professional. I knew the procedure in retrieving evidence.
Oh, I don't doubt that a bit. Now, when you sent in your application for DNA testing to the forensic scientist, what exactly did you say?
I told him it was a recent homicide, local, unprovoked as far as anyone knew, and that it was going to be one of the easier cases that he's had to deal with.
Now, this is a forensic scientist. They know what they're expected to do. An autopsy could have easily been done to indicate the recency of the homicide. There was no need to indicate the locality of the situation, and neither was there any need to allude the case was solved easily. Why did you do that?
Because it was easy. I did nothing wrong. I mentioned no names.
Yes, but you have also mentioned how well publicized this case was. A forensic scientist can certainly put two and two together. Now, continuing on, this eyewitness, you spoke to her beforehand?
No, I didn't. I was very professional. I had no contact with her.
Okay. What about after she selected Albert from the lineup? What did you do then?
Well, I mean, I was relieved. She got the right guy. I guess I did let that show a bit, but it wasn't just me. Police officers did it as well. We were all collectively happy with her decision, but it was her decision, not ours.
But see, that's exactly the problem. She was inadvertently affirmed of her decision. This has huge implications on Albert's case. Emily, thank you for being here with us today and sharing your side of the story.
Well, thank you, and I hope that you do realise that in life there is black and there is white. That man is guilty. He has done something wrong. That's it.
Okay, well, you want to know what I think has happened in this situation? We have a common case of misinformation effects. Misinformation is defined as information presented as being truthful initially, which later turns out to be false. However, misinformation itself is not the real cause behind the trouble in the current case. The events leading to Albert's arrest have been sparked by two key psychological constructs, namely the continued influence effect and the post-event misinformation effect. Now, the continued influence effect occurs when misinformation is presented to an individual and is subsequently retracted. but the individual continues to rely upon the misinformation in their reasoning or memory. Albert, this seemed to happen in your case, due to the highly publicized nature of your trial, resulting in jury members being exposed to misinformation which led them to form biased judgments of your guilt prior to the trial commencing. Subsequently, this meant that when the jury was presented with contradictory evidence, they were inadvertently overlooked it due to the continued influence effect. Additionally, the post-event misinformation effect occurs when misinformation is presented to an individual after an event has occurred and subsequently distorts their memory of the event. This happened in your case, Albert, with the eyewitness testimony. In your case, the eyewitness was exposed to misinformation during the criminal lineup process, whereby the police conducting the lineup knew that you were a suspect and provided the witness with leading, biased questions and opinions that led them to believe that you were the man they saw with Teresa. When the witness identified you, the police gave them confirmation, thereby boosting their confidence in their identification. Because of this, when it came to identifying you in court, the eyewitness was more certain in their identification, which had a significant impact upon the jury and their belief in the misinformation. Now, isn't that right, Dr. Steve Eckerly, our expert experimental psychologist who is with us today in the audience?
Yes, Dr. Phil, you're completely right. It seems in Albert's case, misinformation effects have certainly played a role in his conviction. Like you said, it's clear to me that the continued influence effect and the post-misinformation effect are both at play here. There are a few things that our criminal justice system can do, however, in order to mitigate the risks of wrongfully convicting an innocent individual. First of all, numerous researchers have found that by educating people about how misinformation effects arise and the strong influence they can exert over our judgments, their effects can be reduced. For this reason, it'd be a good first step for individuals involved in the justice system, be they lawyers, judges, police officers or jurors, to complete a mandatory online education module with information about misinformation effects being explained to them via a recorded video with expert cognitive psychologists. Secondly, it'd be extremely beneficial for the justice system to employ case managers, especially for high-profile cases like Albert's, where there's been a lot of media attention, to act as barriers to the flow of unnecessary information, which may later turn out to be misinformation between parties involved in criminal cases. A case manager may, for example, be an intermediary between an individual who makes a petition for a DNA case and the examiner who carries the test out, to ensure that the examiner is not exposed to biasing misinformation that may contaminate their judgments, as seemed to happen in Albert's case. Thirdly, myself and other experts would like to see detailed refutations be given in cases where the media has exposed the public to misinformation, rather than simply retractions. Numerous studies by colleagues of mine, such as Ulrich Ecker and Stephen Lewandowski, have found that detailed refutations, which offer an alternative explanation for the events that took place, or that explain why the misinformation was initially communicated, are far more effective at reducing people's reliance on misinformation than short, uninformative retractions. Finally, Dr. Phil, in order to prevent the influence of the post-misinformation effect on eyewitness identifications, it'd be of great value for the criminal justice system to put in place safeguards that prevent eyewitnesses from being exposed to post-event misinformation. Such safeguards may include having the individual who presents the lineup to the eyewitness be unaware of who the suspect is, and preventing law enforcement individuals from providing feedback to the eyewitness about their identification to prevent their confidence from being inflated, which in turn may sway jury members or judges.
Wow, Steve, that's certainly a lot of really great information there. It does seem like there are a number of things the criminal justice system can do to prevent people from ending up in Albert's situation.
There certainly is, Dr. Phil, and my heart goes out to Albert. I really feel for the difficult circumstances you've wound up in.
Thank you, Dr. Steve.
Well, Albert, obviously there have been some serious problems in the handling of your case, many of which seem to have been caused by misinformation effects. I would like to personally extend my deepest apologies to you for the failings of the criminal justice system. It has just failed you horribly.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Thank you so much.
And when it comes time to make your appeal, Dr. Eckerly and I would like to extend to you our aid in terms of appearing as expert testimony in your case.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. I just feel so much better going forward in this trial. So much more confident that I'll finally get home to see my family and kids. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Albert, and sharing your story.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Well, my guest today provided us with a classic example of criminal justice system gone wrong in the worst possible way. The powerful influence of misinformation effects cannot be overlooked as a contributing factor in the wrongful conviction of Albert, and it is clear that the criminal justice system in this country needs to implement system-wide interventions to prevent innocent people from being wrongfully convicted, while the real perpetrators are allowed to go free and continue to victimize others. As a special gift to my audience today, I have provided all of you with free educational brochures to inform you more about misinformation effects in the criminal justice system, so that should any of you be called to jury duty, mistakes like those made in Albert's case will not be so easily made again. Thank you all. See you next time.